Hey, everybody, welcome back to the show. As always, I'm your host, Stuart Cranes. This is another episode of Your Inside Track to Success. Please be sure to like and subscribe. I know that you are bound to get a lot of information, a lot of value from today's episode. So please be sure to share this out with somebody as well. The cost of admission here is always free, but we want to be sure that our guests and our messages make it out to as many people as possible. As always, folks, we got a great guest for you this week. He is somebody that I would call Ohio's own. He is from Richland County and is an absolute mover and shaker in Central Ohio. He is a former OSU football player, is heavy in the nonprofit space through a community reach, and is also the founder of Obie's Breakfast Club, which I recently had the privilege of attending, and it's one of the absolute best networking events anywhere in Central Ohio. I want to welcome to the show Obie Stillwell. Obie, thank you for being here today.
Absolutely, Stuart. Thank you. Thank you for your persistence, your persistency. It's paid off, and I think it's a great win-win. So I'm really glad to be here. Thank you so much for having me.
Of course, of course. And I know you are quite the busy guy because you're out there having an impact in just about everything you touch. I'd love to kick it off though. You, for a lot of folks, got to live the dream. You got to suit up in the scarlet and gray for the Ohio State Buckeyes for a
Yeah.
couple of seasons. And tell me what that was like, achieving a goal, a dream that so many have that don't get to realize for themselves.
Yeah. Yeah, it's pretty cool. It's I at the end of the day, I really kind of put it on my community back in Mansfield and playing in Madison and then just my family, my parents, my siblings, my cousins, my uncles and aunts, and different ones that just instilled a lot of belief in myself and a lot of pride in our family. And so, I went to walk on route, so I had to earn a scholarship,
Mm-hmm.
uh, which is unconventional in a certain way, and but it's cool. It was my path, it was my journey. I thought that felt like I could do it, and I thank God and really very humbled that I was able to do it and play. I played 93, 94, 95. Dating myself, man, it's crazy. It's been that long, but it was blessing, and I played with some really cool athletes there at Ohio State, and a lot of award winners from Heisman to Blitnikoff to um, Jim Thorpe to
Yeah.
Lombardi Award winners, and it's really cool. I got Orlando Pace was one of the guys that I played ball with, and it's pretty cool because he not too long ago when he got put into the NFL Hall of Fame, I received this beautiful, unbelievable packet that it was an invite to come to Canton and be a part of his induction to the Pro Football Hall of Fame. There with his family, his wife, and just a handful of us teammates were there, and he had us stand up, and people were texting me, "I see you on ESPN," and it was just cool, and just to that brotherhood extended even after college. So it was a blessing. So yeah, Ohio State was a blessing, and it's good to be a part of that family.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And clearly it continues to pay dividends over and over and over again with the relationships that you've developed. Tell me a little bit about work ethic, though, because you kind of nailed it. You were a walk on, which for the folks listening to this who maybe don't know what that means you had to earn your scholarship. You had to enroll in the university and fight for your spot and earn it over time. What did that teach you about work? What did that teach you about work ethic, and how has that transferred forward beyond your playing career?
Um, man, um, I think it teaches me that work ethic is not something that is automatic. It's not something that you always feel like doing. It's a decision. It's a you decide to work hard. You decide to grind. And most of the time, what triggers that decision is a goal, right? And something out there that you feel like is worth obtaining. And it showed me too that there's layers to this. I mean, there's a lot of talented people out there. There's a lot of people that could run faster than me, that were stronger than me, that maybe were even more athletic than me, but work ethic somehow has a way of evening out the playing field. The ability to, maybe someone was maybe a step faster than me, but by the third quarter, I was catching them. And that has something to do with work ethic. By, or you may be fast in the first quarter or the second quarter, but are you fast in the third, and are you fast in the fourth quarter? When everybody gets tired. And I think it was Vince Lombardi that says fatigue does make cowards of us all. And that's one thing, that work ethic, working hard, grinding, working out when we didn't have to work out. I incorporated that as a part of my skill set, that I brought to the game, that I could go longer and harder than anyone else. And that was something that I believe is what separated me, and I was eventually able to get a scholarship, and I was playing as a first year walk on, and traveling and all that kind of stuff. So those type of things I was able to establish during the summer months. And they saw that, and the coaches, the opportunity was based off of things you were doing off the field. When you were conditioning and strength and conditioning, that's when they're trying to figure out who we're going to use and who we're able to put into the game. And so they might bigger, faster, stronger, what have you, but work ethic, I think, evened out the playing field. What are you willing to do when no one's watching? What are you willing to do to up your game? That's beyond what is asked of you, because I think that's the sweet spot. It's that extra piece. Boss tells you to make 20 phone calls a day, right? So, and some people struggle. Oh, I'm trying to, I may get to 10, or I may get to 15, or I got to 19, and then you get to ring a bell, you got to 20. But what about that person that's hitting 25 and 30 calls, right? Yeah. They're grinding. It's a different mentality.
Yeah, and at a place like Ohio State, with just the pedigree of some of the players, lots of Hall of Famers. Obviously, you mentioned Orlando Pace. Is it different at those different levels? I mean, you grinded your way, made the roster, earned the scholarship, but do the Hall of Fame players that you got to play with, did that type of work ethic, was it set apart? Anything remarkable? Any stories you can share?
In some players it was, in some players, you would be amazed at their social life and their eating habits and everything else. And you're like, they're all Big Ten, you know what I'm saying? And it's like, wow, and you just know that God has just gifted them at this next level. Now, if you take that gifting and then you put hard work on top of that, you typically get something, pretty amazing. And then, obviously what all athletes struggle with and pray for is that they can stay injury free, right? And so,
yes.
Staying injury free and having the talents, the gifts, and the abilities, and then you add on hard work to that. I probably one of the ones that I would say that had a work ethic is probably Eddie George, who won the Heisman Trophy. Yeah. I remember it was after I was done playing. Eddie was in his second year with the Tennessee Titans. maybe his first year with Tennessee Titans, because he started with the Houston Oilers, and because they were still going back then, and then they started Tennessee Titans. But I remember him and I did a football camp together, and I went over to the facilities, the Woody Hayes athletic facilities, to pick him up because we were going to go shake some hands with some sponsors to collect some checks, right?
Of course.
And yeah, so he was in town. He was working out with our strength and conditioning coach, Dave Kennedy, and a lot of the guys that played in the NFL would come back and work out with Coach Dave Kennedy. So there would be Raymond Harris, Robert Smith, Sean Springs, all these different guys that were in the NFL, and they would come back and work out and be in the indoor facility. So I was there, and I'm probably at least 12 guys, and I'm waiting for Eddie. And they get done with their workouts. Everybody's walking off the field, about to walk off the field, and Eddie goes to run another sprint, right? And when he goes to run another sprint, there's like 3 or 4 other guys that ran the extra sprint with him, right? So then he runs maybe 2 extra sprints just to get a little extra work in. And then they start walking towards the training room, and they're about to leave, and I'm standing there, and everybody's, hey, what's up? Oh, we're dapping up. Hey, what's up? And Eddie comes over and stands by me, and he's like, hey, what's up? And he's talking to me, but he's not really looking at me. I was like, what are you doing, bro? Like, and he's like, yeah, man, just, and he's like looking sideways, like, I'm like, what are you doing? And he's just standing there, just like acting like we're in this deep conversation. And what he was doing was waiting for everybody to go inside. And everybody went inside, and he said, I'll be right back. And he ran 2 extra sprints.
Awesome.
And he comes back, and he's like, they did my extra, so then I had to do extra. That's the work ethic, man. That's a different level, right? They're all in the NFL. They're all in their summer workouts, and there's some NFL guys aren't even working out. And then for him to do extra, right? That's great. But not if they did my extra. So now if they did my extra doesn't count. I got to do extra. Just a different mentality.
Yeah, it's that Mamba mentality that Kobe Bryant coined, but doesn't cost any extra to work harder than somebody else. It's a little bit extra energy, but the dividends pay themselves over and over and over again.
Yeah.
Obie, I know that you are somebody that takes a lot of pride in connecting people, creating connections in the community. You founded the Breakfast Club that meets at the Horseshoe about every other month or so here in Columbus, Ohio. What was the genesis of that event, and what type of work did you need to put into place to get an event of that size started and off the ground?
Man, good question. I probably not as sexy as not that sexy of a story, but I've always been someone who has enjoyed people and community, and my father and my mother, always have taught us to treat people the same and fairly and all that kind of stuff, and no matter what their color, and where they're from, what's their background, it doesn't matter. And so probably back in like 2015, I was hanging out with some friends, and a couple friends were Black and a couple friends were white, and we were all kind of hanging out, and we were just having some drinks, like after work or something like that, kind of like that type of thing. And I told one of them happened to be an attorney, and I said, hey, you know what I would love to do? And I was just kind of sitting there watching the interaction, like, you know what I would love to do? And he's like, what? I said, I would love to bring a group of my white friends and a group of my Black friends together into an event, because I don't think they'll really meet each other unless I do that. And he's like, man, you're probably right. Not that it's so segregated, but the fact that, I have friends that typically, because of the circle that they kind of hung out in, they would never meet these people over here, but they were both really good people. And I was like,
Yeah.
and it just happened to be white and happened to be black. And I was like, man, you guys need to meet. And so I thought about that. And then I thought about, what I could do to kind of help former athletes and veterans, and then human resources and DEI. And so one of the friends actually said, hey, we'll host that, who's an attorney. And so we hosted it, he hosted it, and we had our first breakfast club, and it's probably about 18 people, all guys in suits. And we had breakfast, and I did that like 4 more times. Then I stopped. I picked it back up in I stopped 2016, 17, 18. I didn't do it in 2019. I picked it back up. I ended up talking to Gene Smith, who's the athletic director at Ohio State. I told him what I was doing. He asked me, did I have any women involved? And I said, no. And he called me an idiot. He said, you're an idiot. And I said, okay. He's like, you got to get women involved. I was like, well, it wasn't like I didn't want them involved. It was just guys. I was trying to bring some guys. He's like, get women involved. So I got some women. I got women involved. Started inviting women. The next event I had, where I kind of brought it all back, I had Claire Kreitler there, who was the president of human resources for Root Insurance at that time. She came in. She's actually a former athlete. She played for Purdue soccer, and I had her come in, and I interviewed her at Super Chef. And then we had about 85 people, and people thought I was crazy because I had it at 7:30 in the morning, and they're like, man, 7:30 in the morning, people. Well, when I pulled up at like 6:45, 6:30, 6:45, people were out in the parking lot, waiting to get in. I'm like, are you serious? Like people were coming up to me, it's like, hey, Obie, we're setting up. There's people waiting. I'm like, wow. It's like maybe I got something here. Maybe this 7:30 in the morning thing will go. And then this thing called COVID happened. And then so we had to cancel our next one and wait until all that. And then people were asking me, hey, Obie, when are you bringing it back as COVID kind of restrictions kind of lifted? And I was like, trying to figure out what venue where I was going to have it. And then bam, I had it in the recruiting room at Ohio State. And we just started to grow. I think we had the next one, we probably maybe had 100, 105, 110, and then we started growing to 150, 130, 140, 150, and I think we're averaging right around 165. I think we've gotten up to like close to 200. But I mean, it's growing. I am trying to do a better job at retention, like making sure that because a lot of people are saying, I didn't know you were having another one, right? So we have it 4 times a year. The next one is June 13th. So I got to keep pumping to people, hey, there's when the next one is. And you can also go on our website, obiesbreakfastclub.com, and get the information there. But yeah, that's essentially the genesis of it, and just wanting to create a safe space for conversation. I'm not a real big drinker at all. So I was kind of tired of going out at happy hours and stuff like that, trying to get business. It was just kind of, I'd rather be at home with my family and stuff like that. It's just, I'm not just a night owl like that. And so I really just kind of selfishly, after the success in 2019 and in I kind of started thinking man, I'm just going to create my own tribe. Yeah. And I'm going to create my own tribe of really kind, considerate, intelligent, bright, innovative people from business, community, and government. And I'm going to bring those people together and I think they're out there, right? And I just didn't know. I felt they were out there, but I wasn't 100% sure if they were out there. But I had a feeling they were out there. And each time I have the event, it's an affirmation. It affirms what I thought. There's this passage in the Bible. It talks about when Christ fed, I think it was 5,000 with 2 fish and 5 loaves of bread. Have you ever heard of that?
Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely.
So it's interesting that kind of the heroes of the story is one, Christ, right? But then also the kid that had the 2 fish and the 5 loaves of bread, right?
Mhm.
Um, but the unsung hero of that story, in my opinion, is the people who had the hunger,
Interesting.
because the hunger ignited the kid who reached into his bag to pull out the 2 fish and the 5 loaves of bread. And it was the hunger that caused Christ to bless and multiply the food. So when I think about Obie's Breakfast Club, and they're like, man, Obie, you put this really super cool thing together, but it doesn't matter if the people don't have the appetite for it. So
Right,
it's the
right.
people that actually are the heroes each and every time we have that. The people are the ones who affirm the event. And I come home and I just look at my wife, and she's there. She helps. She's at the front. She puts the decor together and flowers and all that kind of stuff to make the room look pretty. And we come home, we just look at each other and we're like, whew, God did it again,
Yeah, yeah.
and it's like the people showed up, man, and the people desire and hunger for a safe space, a multicultural safe space to enjoy humanity,
Mhm.
and so yeah, that's what it's been, man. And it's just like I just had Homeland Security reached out to me. The Ohio State Highway Patrol reached out, and they want to have a safe space conversation about recruiting more Black and Brown people into law
Wow, wow.
enforcement. And so that's what we're working on. And it may be the June 13th conversation, but I think that's just an awesome, it's an awesome response to the type of people that have been in that room, that they would say, Obie, we think Obie's Breakfast Club is a safe space for us to bring this conversation.
Yeah,
And would
yeah.
you be open to that? And I went and I took a tour and all that kind of stuff. I took the tour of Homeland Security. I took a tour of Ohio State Highway Patrol, and I just actually spoke with some individuals from the city of Columbus. So I'm hoping to have a nice panel to really kind of dig into the nuances of why is it so challenging, right? But then also the stigma of law enforcement, and what is the conflict in some ways with the Black and Brown community, and what does that look
Mm.
like? And shoot, matter of fact, is that real? Is it a real conflict? Is it not a real conflict? Is it a historical aspect, or is it something we still deal with? And just kind of unpack that a little bit. So yeah.
Obi, this is something I know you don't know about me, but prior to starting this podcast, I actually had the privilege of producing, show running for 2 different shows. One was called On Being Biracial, which was sponsored in part by the Philadelphia Inquirer, and then also one called Demystifying Diversity, which is hosted by my really good friend, Daryl East Lyons. That show ended up being picked up by Temple University for a time. And this is exactly the type of thing that, would be talked about on that show. And
Oh wow.
of all the people we had on, the quote that stood out to me the most, and I a shame on me for not remembering this person's name, but they said it's really difficult to hate up close. And so what I want to acknowledge you for is being the bridge in this situation between two groups of people, not only in your breakfast club, but in the very worthwhile conversation of to have just in our community,
Yeah.
bridging the gap so that these conversations can happen, particularly amongst people that have some juice, have some influence in the community, and can start to create meaningful dialogue.
Yes, yes. And you know what? Here's a shameless plug. We do have t-shirts, Obie's Breakfast Club t-shirts that say harder to hate face to face.
Oh, I'm gonna have to get one of those.
Yeah. So if you go on let's just say by the time this kicks out, they'll be able to go online and order Always Breakfast Club shirt t-shirt says harder to hate face to face.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
and that's just a great motto for life, everybody. Like, regardless of whether it's law enforcement, conversation like that, you really never know what somebody's going through until you walk a mile in their shoes or at least
Yep.
have a conversation to connect with them.
Yep.
And,
Yep.
you know, you never know who that next most important relationship is going to be. And especially if you don't reach out to make that connection. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
definitely encourage those of you, especially here in Columbus, to attend the next Obie's Breakfast Club coming up in June. And also to join, I'm sure, the email list if you have one, Obie, so
Yes.
that they can know about upcoming events.
I was going to say also is that we're creating a community of interaction. So you're going to actually on our website, you're going to actually be able to put a profile on there and be able to talk to one another like LinkedIn. And that's one of the things that I've been wanting to have accessible to those who have attended Obie's Breakfast Club to have the ability to mobilize, if you will, people who are within reach. LinkedIn is a great platform, and I've used it quite a bit. But I want to condense LinkedIn into a region of people, so it's regional. And so now the people who I'm trying to get to is a little more accessible.
Yeah.
And so yeah, so you'll be able to sign up. You'll get emails and all that kind of stuff, but you'll also be able to put your picture up, your profile. You'll be able to say if you're looking for work or you're looking for employees or you're looking for, to pivot or transition in your own life. So you'll be able to say different things of that nature. And again, it's in a smaller platform that I think is a little more edible because we've had all this technology, and so it sometimes we're consumed with all this information. This way, it's no advertising, it's it's not a bunch of advertisements that's coming in front of you, but it does allow you to edibly consume and digest relevant information.
No, I absolutely love that. And it sounds like a really great companion to what you're developing with the Breakfast Club, for sure.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
I want to pivot here, not because what we're currently talking about isn't valuable, but I do want to make sure we're touching on the work you're doing with a community reach. How did that get started? How did you become involved? And what is the work that you guys are doing here in the state of Ohio?
Yes, so some people may have heard of Community Action Program or Head Start, but so my father was the executive director of Community Action Program Head Start back in the 60s, 70s, and 80s, early 80s. And so the original umbrella of the program is called MRM PC TOAP. TOAP. So it's a long acronym. It was created in 1965, right? It's Mansfield Richland Morrill Policy Committee, Total Operations Against Poverty. Goodness gracious. So
Yeah.
and then so that was the umbrella, and then under that umbrella was Head Start and Community Action Program, which was a program that was put in place to help individuals that are in impoverished situations. Didn't matter if you were Black, didn't matter if you were white or Asian or Hispanic. It didn't matter if you were in a certain level of income and you needed help. Community Action Program Head Start was there. So as this program grew in the 60s, 70s, 80s, and 90s, and then especially in the late 90s and early 2000s, they began to pivot into affordable housing. And so, as they continued to pivot through the affordable housing, they acquired 11 different communities, 254 doors of affordable housing that are HUD 202s and 811s.
Mhm.
202s are elderly and 811s are disabled. So, elderly and disabled. So, now as the program continued to grow, a lot of the board members right now, chairman of the board, treasurer, what have you, they were getting to a point in which they needed some help. And so they actually, my dad's been going for 40 years from this program. They asked him to come back and try to help them navigate because they didn't want to lose the properties and they had to deal with HUD and all that kind of stuff. So needless to say, my father came back, helped them a little bit, and asked me to come in. And so I kind of helped a little bit. And then he looked at me and said, son, you should take this nonprofit over. My father lives in Louisville. He's 76 years old. He's like, listen, take this over. And I'm like, and the board was like, yes, Obie, we've known you before you weren't even born. We've known you for so long. You know this program. And I said, so I end up taking over, and I believe it was, I think it's September of last year or something. But I had to do a lot of things to kind of revitalize it. And so needless to say, I pivoted it and rebranded it to a community reach. And you can go to a communityreach.com and actually look at all the things what we provide. But we have 5 pillars of impact, and that is affordable housing, access to healthcare and wellness, career and workforce development, education. And when we say education, we are interested in helping parents and students who are having challenges navigating a child that is eligible for IEP program and have been diagnosed with needing IEPs or 504s, right? And so
Gotcha.
that can be that stigma and that educational system can be kind of tough to navigate through. So we're helping that. And then we have recreation through MAS. I call it MAS, music, arts, and sports. So obviously I'm a sports guy, but I grew up in the church. My father was a pastor. I grew up in a holiness church where there was shouting, Pentecostal. So we had drums, we had bass, we had organ, we had piano. We had congas, the hand percussion. So I grew up around a lot of music, and so I believe. And then I'm in the arts. I love arts. I love artists and different ones, and so I really felt like sometimes when you get into sports, it's like you got to be one or the other. And it's like, no, the recreation can be sports related, but it also can be something that helps spark creativity through music, through arts. And so that's a community reach. So right now we actually have a program that we're working with Coca-Cola. I have a friend who's the senior director of the Coca-Cola Foundation. We're revitalizing. I kidnapped him. He's actually from Louisville, and I kidnapped him to come to Mansfield. I was like, hey, I need you to help me revitalize a park. And so his name is Morris Howard, great guy. And he's helping me revitalize the park. And then I reached out to 2 of us superintendents, one from Madison, which is school I went to, and then there's Mansfield Senior, and they're kind of like rival schools, right? And we played against each other in the whole 9. And so I reached out to the superintendents, asked them if they could connect me with the vocational schools, and I wanted that vocational departments to help me build pavilions out there, right? And so they were like, okay, well, who's going to pay for this? Blah, blah, blah. Anyhow, I brought the city in, Mansfield. Jody is the mayor. She's amazing. And so at the end of the day, the city said, well, Obie, if you can pull the vocational departments together and they can build them, we'll pay for the equipment and we'll pay for the materials. And if they'll do it. And I'm like, I mean, like, we were on the phone when Coca-Cola Foundation said that they were going to come to Mansfield, and I'm telling you, the room erupted with the mayor and the director of Parks and Rec and the director of safety and the engineers and stuff. There were tears flowing because Mansfield is in such dire need. My hometown is such dire need of not only a spark to move the needle in the aspects of community, but to follow through. We need momentum, and we needed a win. And instead of me coming in through our foundation and asking for something, I went to the city and said, okay, I thought about it. It's like, what can I do? Right. And what can I bring to the table? And so that's what I did. And so this thing is in motion. I actually got a text from my buddy from Coca-Cola 2 weeks ago, said the first check has been cut. Things are moving along. I talked to the director of Parks and Recreation, a buddy of mine who actually I went to elementary school with, Mark Abrams. So I've known him since like the 3rd grade, and he's now the director of Park and Recreation. And he said Coca-Cola has been amazing to work with. And so it's all happening. And they call me the dreamer. When we come into the conference room, we sit down and we talk like, oh, Obie's the dreamer. And I was like, yeah, I said, but you guys wouldn't have thought that I would have been able, if I told you a year ago that Coca-Cola was going to come to Mansfield and help us revitalize a park, would y'all believe it? And they're like, no, but it's happening. So it's a blessing. To God be the glory.
Oh, that's such an amazing story. And I think it also just speaks volumes. You know, you're not somebody that has millions of followers on Instagram. You don't have like a bajillion folks on TikTok or whatever, but you have what I would call authentic influence. You are actually putting deeds behind your words. You're making things happen in your community and across the state of Ohio. Two-part question. How does one develop the belief in themselves that they can do things like this? And also, what's your advice for anybody who has a dream like yours?
Ooh, to have belief in yourself is, I think it starts from the outside in. You have to realize that anytime God gives you a vision, it is not your full responsibility to get that completed all by yourself.
Wow.
Period.
Tell me more.
It's not your, it is for you to be able to articulate it in a way in which other people can buy in. It's not, because if it's big enough, you can't do it by yourself. And you have to realize that. And you have to realize that, like, I'm just the spark. Like, literally at that, we all met. It was probably 12 different guys from various construction skill trade areas, and we met the other day in Mansfield, and there was a point in time in that where I shook everybody's hand and I said, hey, thank you so much for being here. I'm going to leave it to the people who are smarter than me. I'm out. Right. and they laughed and they said, but it's very true. Like, they're measuring stuff and they're like, oh, well, this beam here and that there. And I'm like, man, listen, I've done and I took a lot of pictures, but I'm the gatherer, right? I'm the one who gathers. And there's a belief. I think belief comes from knowing what you are and what you're not. And sometimes people lack belief in themselves because they're trying to be the whole pie. They're trying to be the everything within that particular situation or activity or goal or whatever. And it's like, no, when I walked onto Ohio State, say, hey, I earned a scholarship and I was able to do, but when you asked me, I had to start with my mom, my dad, my cousins, my uncles, my siblings. Like, that's where that stuff comes from. It's not like you just have this innate belief in yourself. It is a combination of, and that's why even childhood is so important, like what we say to our kids and how we move with children and our youth for today. It's so important to make sure that we don't say the wrong things to them, because that can affect their belief in themselves. It is our duty as a community to support and to affirm. And I think like that belief, like inevitably it came from the people around me, not necessarily just Obie's belief. And there's some things that I've experienced that has added to that. But shoot, if I'm honest, there's some things I've experienced that has taken away from the belief that I had in myself. Sure. Some mistakes and mishaps, and man, I wish I would have went right instead I went left, you know. So I think the belief in yourself is really recognizing and deeply trying to figure out who am I, and what am I, and what am I not. And I think from that point, and you can get a lot.
So where do folks start with that, Obie, if you have any advice for them?
Man, like I'm gonna keep it 100 with you. Start with God.
Okay.
Period. And that is not always the most popular thing, but that's where I start. And in Christ do I move and I breathe, and greater is he that is in me than he that is in myself. You know, say that greater is he that is in me than he that is in the world, is the scripture. Greater is he that is in me than he that is in the world. In Proverbs it says, trust in the Lord with all thy heart, lean not to thine own understanding, and in all thy ways acknowledge him, and he will direct your path. You know, do not be wise in your own eyes. Fear the Lord and depart from evil, and it will be health to your flesh and strength to your bones. It's like some of the basic things, you know, that it says, you know, wisdom is the principal thing. So get wisdom, and in all thy getting, get understanding. It's like there's 31 Proverbs, so I try to read a proverb for each day of the month. And I'll just read it over and over throughout the year. I'll keep reading over and over and over. But it's that belief in who I am is and even the mistakes I made, because it's God's grace that makes me just not beat myself up like, you are so stupid. You know, sometimes I'm like, goodness gracious, like, you know, but God is so merciful, he's so kind and so gracious, and his mercies are new every day. His grace and mercies are new every day. So he restoreth my soul, right? And so he gives me new things. And that's the blessing. Like, honest to God, that's the blessing. And then from a spiritual side, that's one side of it. But it says faith without works is dead, right? So you can't just have faith and be so heavenly minded that you're no earthly good. So I also have to think like, okay, what do I do in a natural sense? So I do a lot of reading, I do a lot of listening. I got audio books and things that I'm listening to that's constantly affirming me and giving me new perspectives and challenging me. And then my wife, having the right partner in your life, you know, and
amen to that.
Because relationships can stress you. And if you have someone who is constantly subtracting and dividing instead of adding and multiplying, it will drain you quicker than anything, right? And so that has been important. And really that trying to keep honest with yourself and the things that you struggle with, and having a good partner. Not only a wife, but like I have a coach that I talk to. Her name is Brandy, and she helps coach me through business ideas and concepts. But I can be vulnerable in front of her without judgment. And so that's important, to have an accountability partner that you can be vulnerable. It's your mental health, physical health, spiritual health. Those things all feed into your ability to step out and take a leap into something that might be new and scary or what have you, but you got to pull all these different things together and
Yeah.
man, to be able to step out. But you can do it. You can do it. You got to have audacity. You have to have audacity. You have to have the nerve and the audacity to believe that you deserve it. You deserve to be the best. You deserve to be on top. You got to have audacity to say, well, if they did it, why not me?
Yeah, Obi, I'm just gonna say amen to everything you just said. Like, you are echoing everything I've ever talked about on this show and what all our other guests have spoken into as well. I could ask you a million more questions, but we're almost at time. So I want to ask you this, and then we're going to begin to wrap it up.
Okay.
What is the legacy that you want to have with your time here on this earth?
Mm, legacy. That he cared.
Ooh, tell me more.
That I cared, that I cared about people. I cared about circumstances. I cared about people's hurt, people's pain.
Yeah.
That I cared.
Well, brother, it's very, very evident that you do care.
Yeah.
Not only
You
through your
got me
words.
on that, Stu.
No, it's all good. It's all good. And I just want to, just as a man, one man to another, I just want to acknowledge you for who you are. I came to know about you through Ian Crumpler. He's
Yeah.
photographer that does the photos for your Breakfast Club.
Die.
He did my wedding.
Oh
Uh
wow. Awesome.
yeah. And just hearing about you, I just knew I had to get to know you and meet you. So it's actually an honor and a blessing to have you here on this show today. And I know that you are going to continue to do amazing, impactful things here in the state of Ohio and beyond if you feel called.
Yeah.
And I just
Mhm.
want to thank you for all you poured into the listeners on this show today because, dude, this was like one of the most real and amazing conversations I've been blessed to have. So truly thank
Thank
you
you.
for honoring us with that. And
Yeah.
the the very last thing I just want to ask you is, what are you acknowledging yourself for today?
What am I acknowledging myself for today? I would probably say I acknowledge myself for um, making a great decision in who I chose to be my wife for the rest of my life. Yes. I think if I got everything else wrong, I got this one right, and it makes all the difference. It makes all the difference in the world. Ups and downs, all arounds, and it just it's she's my ride and die, man. She's my ride or die, and I think that it's cool. It's cool to be to that little ride home to anticipate seeing the person that you care about and you love, man. Like anybody listening, like be patient, like get that. I want you to be able to live in that. And it's not that mean everything's perfect. It just means that person is the pursuit of each other's love is perfect. You can there's certain things may not, but the pursuit perfect. And I think we pursue each other perfectly. And it's that's I'll acknowledge myself for making a good decision with that.
What's your wife's name?
Heather.
Shout out to Heather. One of my
Yes.
all-time favorite quotes, and I don't remember where I got this, but behind every strong man is an immensely stronger woman. And so
Yes.
I have not had the privilege of meeting Heather, but if you're married to her, she's got to be absolutely phenomenal. So
Thank
sh-
you, man. She
shout
is.
shout out to you and your family, and thank you again so much for being here today. Truly.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for having me, brother. And I'm looking forward to seeing you at the next Breakfast Club.
Oh, I'll be there. I'll be bringing my wife Jennifer for sure.
Oh,
And
great.
it's gonna
Great.
be it's gonna be a lot of fun. I can't wait. And folks, for those of you listening to this, definitely check it out. If you are anywhere near Central Ohio, come to the next one, June 13th, obiesbreakfastclub.com. We will be sure to link that out in the show notes, the description, anywhere else you find this episode. And folks, this has been another amazing conversation here on Your Inside Track to Success. I'm your host, Stuart Cranes. We will catch you next week with another amazing guest or message. We'll see you there.